In the grim darkness of the far future, where war consumes every corner of the galaxy, few events rival the enigmatic Great Sleep of the Necrons in scope and significance. This ancient race, shrouded in mystery and terror, once ruled the stars with unparalleled technological might. Yet, inexplicably, they abandoned their empire, disappearing into the shadows of history for over 60 million years. Their awakening in the 41st millennium heralded chaos and destruction, but what led to their descent into dormancy remains one of the most pivotal and chilling chapters in the Warhammer 40K universe. To understand the Great Sleep, one must journey back to a time when the Necrons were not the soulless metallic husks they are today. Born as the Necrontire, a mortal species cursed with fleeting lives under a dying sun, they were consumed by despair and envy of the Old Ones, an ancient and godlike species who had achieved near-eternal life. This envy festered into hatred, and the Necrontyr waged a galaxy-spanning war to claim what they believed was their birthright: immortality. The Necrontyre's destiny took a dark turn when they forged a pact with the C'tan, star-eating entities of unimaginable power. Promising them deliverance from mortality, the C'tan betrayed the Necrontyr, transforming them into the Necrons, undying machines bound to serve their celestial overlords. With their new forms, the Necrons unleashed a war of annihilation upon the Old Ones, shattering their dominance and reshaping the galaxy. But the Necrons' conquest came at a price. Betrayal ran deep within their ranks, and the cost of their immortality was the loss of their souls and individuality. The Necrons turned on the C'tan, shattering the godlike beings into fragments. Yet victory left them exhausted, with the galaxy teeming with emerging life forms, primordial races destined to evolve into formidable foes. Faced with this reality, the Necrons' silent king, Zarek, made a momentous decision: to retreat into a galaxy-wide slumber. This self-imposed dormancy was meant to allow the Necrons to outlast their enemies, awakening in an era when they could reclaim their supremacy. Thus began the Great Sleep, an event unparalleled in scope, wherein countless tomb worlds were sealed, their occupants encased in stasis crypts designed to endure the ravages of time. But this was no peaceful slumber. The Silent King's decision was fraught with risks. Tomb worlds were left vulnerable to decay, invasion, and malfunction. When the Necrons began their reawakening millions of years later, they found themselves in a galaxy unrecognizable, their dominance challenged by the Imperium of Man, the Aldari remnants, and other Xeno species. The Great Sleep is more than a tale of strategic retreat. It is a testament to the Necrons' hubris, resilience, and despair. It encapsulates their transition from mortal beings to mechanical immortals, highlighting the cost of their ambitions and the sacrifices made for survival. This prologue sets the stage for a deeper exploration into the actors, events, and consequences that define this epical chapter in galactic history. The journey into the Great Sleep is a story of survival, betrayal, and an unyielding desire for a future once promised but never realized. The Great Sleep of the Necrons began not as a single decisive act, but as a culmination of despair, necessity, and cold calculation. The Necron Empire, though unmatched in technological prowess and military might, found itself at a crossroads. Their ascension from the fragile Necrontyr to immortal machine beings had come at the cost of their souls, individuality, and connection to the galaxy's living energy. Victory over the Old Ones had left the galaxy in ruins, but it also left the Necrons fragmented, weary, and vulnerable to the tides of time and the rise of new civilizations. The decision to retreat into stasis was not made lightly. It originated with Zarek, the Silent King, who bore the burden of leadership for an empire that had lost its purpose. The war against the Old Ones had been a cataclysmic conflict, scarring not only the galaxy but the Necrons themselves. While they emerged triumphant, the victory was hollow. The destruction of the Old Ones did not grant the Necrons peace or purpose. Instead, it unleashed the warp's chaotic energies, giving rise to the entities known as Chaos Gods and sowing instability across the cosmos. The Necrons, once the masters of death and technology, now faced an uncertain future in a galaxy teeming with younger, unpredictable species. Sarek foresaw the consequences of remaining active in such an environment. The rise of the Eldar and the other nascent species posed a long-term threat to the Necron dynasty. Unlike the Necrons, who were trapped in their mechanical forms, these younger species had the potential to evolve and grow, thriving in a galaxy that was now theirs to shape. The Silent King understood that the Necrons, while technologically superior, lacked the numbers, vitality, and flexibility to maintain dominance against the ceaseless tide of change. A different approach was necessary, a strategy that could preserve the Necron legacy while allowing time to erode their rivals. To Sarek, the solution lay in the preservation of his people through stasis, a form of temporal escape. By retreating into crypt worlds, the Necrons could effectively remove themselves from the galactic stage, allowing millions of years to pass. During this time, it was expected that many of their enemies would succumb to internal strife, extinction, or the chaos unleashed by the warp. When the Necrons eventually reawakened, they would emerge into a galaxy ripe for reconquest, their technology still unmatched and their worlds fortified against the ravages of time. The process of initiating the Great Sleep was monumental in scope. Tomb worlds were chosen as the resting places for entire dynasties, their locations meticulously selected for their strategic positioning and environmental stability. These worlds were outfitted with stasis crypts, vast subterranean chambers equipped with advanced preservation technology, capable of sustaining the Necron population for eons. The Necrons' overlords and cryptics worked tirelessly to ensure that every detail of their retreat was accounted for, from the sealing of tombs to the defensive measures that would protect their resting places from intruders. But this retreat was not without resistance. Among the Necron leadership, there were voices of dissent, overlords and pharaons who questioned the wisdom of abandoning the galaxy to their enemies. Some argued that the Necrons' technological superiority would allow them to continue their dominance through active engagement. Others feared that the Great Sleep would lead to a loss of cultural identity, a further erosion of the fragments of individuality that remained within their mechanical forms. Yet, Zarek's authority as the Silent King was absolute, and his vision for the Necron's survival ultimately prevailed. The final steps towards the Great Sleep were marked by a mix of solemnity and urgency. Dynasties gathered on their designated tomb worlds, participating in the last ceremonies of unity before entering stasis. The Silent King himself stood as a somber figure, witnessing the retreat of his empire while carrying the weight of its future. In an act of ultimate sacrifice, Zarek chose to relinquish his throne and leave the galaxy entirely. By exiling himself, he ensured that no one individual could wield unchecked power over the sleeping Necrons, preserving the fragile balance among the dynasties. The act of entering stasis was not instantaneous. Across the galaxy, tomb worlds began the slow and deliberate process of shutting down, their inhabitants retreating into the depths of their crypts. Massive constructs hummed with energy as the final protocols were initiated, sealing the Necrons in their cold slumber. These crypts were designed not only to protect their occupants from decay, but also to shield them from external threats. Layers of defensive systems, from automated turrets to monolithic war engines, were placed to guard against intrusions. Still, despite these precautions, some tomb worlds succumbed to the inevitable ravages of time, becoming lost or corrupted during the long eons of dormancy. The galaxy, once dominated by the Necron Star Empire, grew quieter as their presence faded into legend. The younger races, unaware of the Necrons' plans, began to expand and thrive, filling the void left behind. The Eldar rose to prominence, shaping the galaxy with their psychic power and creativity, while humanity took its first steps into the stars. The Necrons, hidden beneath layers of stone and steel, waited in silence, their slumber a testament to their resilience and their hubris. As the crypt sealed and the Great Sleep commenced, the galaxy turned its focus elsewhere, forgetting the once mighty empire that had ruled it. Yet the Necrons, ever patient and unyielding, remained. Their time would come again, and when they awoke, they would reclaim the stars. For the Silent King, the Great Sleep was not an end but a calculated pause, a strategy to ensure that the Necrons would one day rise anew, their legacy intact, and their dominion over the galaxy unchallenged. The path to the Great Sleep of the Necrons was shaped by a sequence of interwoven events, each driven by ambition, betrayal, and the grim realities of survival. This monumental decision did not emerge in isolation, but rather as the inevitable consequence of a series of cataclysms that tore through their once mighty civilization. To understand why the Necrons chose to abandon the galaxy to slumber for millions of years, one must examine the historical, strategic, and existential pressures that forced their hand. The foundation of the Necron Empire lay in the suffering of their progenitors, the Necron Tyre. This frail, short-lived species endured their existence under a dying sun, a curse that condemned them to brief and painful lives. Their hatred for their mortality fueled their obsession with transcending the limits of their biology, which led to their fateful pact with the C'tan. Initially, this alliance seemed to grant the Necrontyr what they desired most: freedom from death. However, the transformation into Necrons came at an unimaginable cost. Their physical bodies were stripped away, their minds shackled, and their souls obliterated to fuel the insatiable hunger of the C'tan. The betrayal by the C'tan sowed seeds of bitterness and mistrust among the Necron leadership, fracturing their unity. Though they eventually rebelled against their would-be gods and shattered the C'tan into shards, the act left their empire exhausted and spiritually hollow. While they had achieved immortality, it was a cursed existence devoid of purpose and individuality. This internal despair, combined with the physical and psychic toll of their transformation, weakened their society's cohesion. Externally, the galaxy itself posed an ever-increasing challenge. The war against the Old Ones, though ultimately successful, devastated entire regions of the cosmos. The Old Ones' mastery of the warp and their creation of psychic species left a legacy of instability. The psychic energy unleashed during their downfall gave rise to new entities within the Immaterium, including the embryonic Chaos Gods. These malevolent forces began to exert their influence on reality, destabilizing the galaxy and introducing a new, unpredictable threat. The Necrons, whose technological supremacy lay in the physical realm, were ill-equipped to contend with the chaotic nature of the warp. In the aftermath of the war, the rise of younger races further complicated the Necrons' position. Chief among these were the Eldar, a species whose rapid ascension and mastery of psychic power made them formidable adversaries. Unlike the Necrons, whose rigid hierarchy and mechanical forms limited their adaptability, the Eldar thrived in the galaxy's ever-changing environment. They expanded rapidly, claiming vast territories and solidifying their dominance. To the Necrons, the Eldar represented both a threat and a bitter reminder of what they had lost: the vitality, creativity, and potential of a living species. Strategically, the Silent King recognized the untenable nature of the Necron situation. The galaxy was no longer theirs to rule with impunity. While their technological superiority remained unmatched, their empire lacked the resources and numbers to maintain control over a galaxy teeming with emerging powers. Every engagement with these younger species drained the Necrons further, with no clear path to sustain dominance. The more they fought, the more they risked permanent damage to their already fragile civilization. Compounding these pressures was the deteriorating state of their own infrastructure. The tomb worlds, while marvels of Necron engineering, were not immune to the passage of time or the ravages of war. Many dynasties had suffered severe losses during the conflicts with the Old Ones and the rebellion against the C'tan, leaving their populations depleted and their resources stretched thin. The machinery that sustained their immortality required maintenance, and the ever-present threat of technological failure loomed over their existence. Without a period of respite, the Necrons faced the real possibility of extinction, not through conquest, but through the slow decay of their own systems. Amid this turmoil, the Silent King foresaw the long-term consequences of remaining active. The galaxy's chaotic state, driven by the influence of the warp and the rise of unpredictable powers, made prolonged engagement a losing strategy. The Necrons' survival required patience, calculation, and a willingness to step away from the battlefield to prepare for a future reclamation of their former glory. The Great Sleep, then, was not an act of surrender, but a strategic withdrawal designed to outlast their enemies and exploit the passage of time as an ally. The decision was also deeply symbolic. By entering stasis, the Necrons sought to preserve what remained of their civilization against the forces of entropy. They understood that their identity and legacy were at risk of being eroded by the galaxy's relentless evolution. Stasis offered them a chance to pause time, to protect the fragments of their culture and technology until they could emerge into a more favorable era. The final catalyst for the Great Sleep was Zarek's realization that the Necrons' fragmentation could not be resolved in the present. The dynasties, while unified in their immortality, were plagued by internal rivalries and conflicting ambitions. The Silent King's leadership, though absolute, was insufficient to heal these divisions in the face of external threats. By imposing the Great Sleep, Zarek sought to buy time not only for the galaxy to weaken, but also for the Necron dynasties to regain their strength and unity. It was a gamble, but one he believed was necessary for the survival of their race. Thus, the Great Sleep was born out of a confluence of factors: the despair of their transformation, the destabilization of the galaxy, the rise of rival powers, and the need to preserve their civilization. It was a decision rooted in cold pragmatism, driven by the belief that time would be the ultimate equalizer. For the Necrons, the Great Sleep was not just a retreat. It was a promise to the galaxy that they would return, stronger and more determined than ever, to reclaim the stars that had once been theirs. The Great Sleep of the Necrons was not a single event, but a carefully orchestrated process that unfolded over centuries. It required meticulous planning, precise execution, and a calculated understanding of the immense timescales involved. This phase of Necron history marks one of the most extraordinary feats of engineering and strategic foresight in the galaxy, with entire dynasties systematically transitioning into stasis. The steps of this grand endeavor were as monumental as they were perilous. The first stage involved the identification and preparation of tomb worlds. These planets were chosen for their stability and strategic value, often located in regions of the galaxy that were geologically stable and far from the centers of galactic turmoil. Cryptex, the master scientists and technologists of the Necrons, worked tirelessly to outfit these worlds with the necessary stasis crypts, energy sources, and defensive systems. Each tomb world was a fortress, designed not only to preserve its sleeping inhabitants, but also to withstand the passage of millions of years. The construction of stasis crypts was a marvel of Necron engineering. These vast underground complexes extended deep beneath the surface of the tomb worlds, shielded by layers of defensive barriers and equipped with redundant systems to ensure their functionality over eons. Each crypt was outfitted with advanced cryostasis technology, allowing the Necrons to remain in a state of perfect preservation. The cryptex implemented fail-safes to guard against system failure, including backup power sources and automated repair mechanisms, capable of maintaining the crypts even under adverse conditions. Once the tomb worlds were prepared, the Necron dynasties began the process of retreating into stasis. This was not an instantaneous action, but a gradual, coordinated effort. Entire legions of Necrons descended into their crypts in ceremonial processions, overseen by their pharaons and overlords. These ceremonies marked the final moments of activity for many dynasties, as they placed themselves in the care of the crypt's machinery. For some, this act was one of solemn duty. For others, it was a reluctant surrender to the inevitable. During this phase, the Silent King issued decrees to ensure the long-term survival of the Necron race. Among these was the directive that dynasties were to maintain autonomy over their tomb worlds, avoiding the consolidation of power that could lead to catastrophic internal conflict. While this policy aimed to prevent large-scale rivalries from threatening the integrity of the Great Sleep, it also meant that the Necron race entered dormancy as a fractured entity, with each dynasty left to its own devices. Defenses were a critical component of the tomb worlds, as the Necrons were acutely aware of the dangers posed by external threats. Automated systems, from turrets to vast constructs like canoptek scarabs and spiders, were deployed to guard against intruders. These systems operated autonomously, responding to any perceived threat with lethal force. Additionally, layers of protective fields and traps were designed to deter even the most determined invaders. Despite these precautions, some tomb worlds would succumb to the ravages of time, invasion, or technological failure during the long millennia of dormancy. As the dynasties entered their slumber, the galaxy continued its inexorable evolution. The Necrons, once the dominant force in the stars, faded into legend and obscurity. Their absence allowed younger species to rise unchallenged, filling the power vacuum left behind. Among these, the Eldar expanded their empire, while the seeds of humanity's future dominance were sown. The Necrons' tomb worlds became little more than myths, hidden beneath layers of rock and forgotten by all but a few. The final stage of the Great Sleep was marked by the departure of Sarek, the Silent King. His exile was both symbolic and practical, as he relinquished his authority to prevent the consolidation of power and ensure that no single ruler could dominate the sleeping Necrons. Sarek's journey into the void was a poignant moment, as he bore the burden of his people's future while leaving them to the mercy of time and chance. His absence left a vacuum in leadership, with the dynasties governed by their overlords and the silent mechanisms of their crypts. The slumber itself was not without complications. As the ages passed, some tomb worlds experienced degradation in their systems. The Necrons' advanced technology, while designed for longevity, was not impervious to entropy. Malfunctions in stasis systems, breaches in defenses, and unforeseen cosmic events all took their toll. On some worlds, entire dynasties were lost, their crypts collapsing or succumbing to external threats. On others, the awakening protocols were triggered prematurely, leading to disoriented and fragmented Necron forces emerging into an unrecognizable galaxy. Yet, despite these challenges, the majority of the Necron dynasties remained intact, their crypts silently waiting beneath the surface of countless worlds. The process of the Great Sleep was a gamble, one that relied on the resilience of their technology and the accuracy of their foresight. The Necrons' faith in their stasis crypts was not misplaced, as these marvels of engineering succeeded in preserving much of their race across millions of years. As time marched on, the galaxy forgot the Necrons, and their tomb worlds became buried beneath the sands of history. But the Necrons themselves never forgot their purpose. Their crypts, programmed with awakening protocols, waited for the right conditions to bring their occupants back to life. The Necrons' slumber was not merely a retreat, but a testament to their unyielding determination to endure, outlast, and one day reclaim the galaxy. The Great Sleep, though fraught with risks and challenges, was a monumental achievement that showcased the Necrons' unparalleled mastery of time and technology. It was a bold strategy, a testament to their resilience, and a grim reminder of their ambition. Though the galaxy moved on without them, the Necrons lay in wait, their crypts holding the promise of a return that would reshape the stars once more. The pivotal moment of the Great Sleep was the decree issued by the Silent King Sarek to initiate the galaxy-wide retreat into stasis. This decision marked the culmination of countless cycles of deliberation, planning, and preparation, but it was not without its dramatic tensions and profound consequences. The Silent King's command was the spark that ignited the final act of a long and painful chapter in Necron history, a choice born from a blend of desperation, foresight, and the cold logic that had come to define their existence. Zarek's declaration was not delivered in haste. It followed extensive consultations with the cryptics, overlords, and pharaons of the Necron dynasties. Despite the fragmented nature of their civilization, these leaders were united in recognizing the existential threats their empire faced. However, the decision to retreat rather than fight was deeply divisive. Many of the overlords, imbued with the pride and arrogance of their ancient lineage, viewed the Great Sleep as an admission of defeat. To them, abandoning their dominion over the stars was an act of humiliation, unworthy of the Necron's status as masters of the galaxy. Yet the Silent King's reasoning was unassailable. The galaxy's chaos was undeniable. Eldar influence was spreading, the warp's instability was intensifying, and emergent species were beginning their own ascensions. The Necron Empire, fractured and depleted, lacked the capacity to sustain its supremacy against such a turbulent backdrop. Zarek's decree was not a concession to these forces, but a strategic maneuver to outlast them. He envisioned a future where the Necrons would awaken into a galaxy ripe for conquest, their enemies weakened by the passage of millennia and their own failings. The key event that formalized this retreat was a grand convocation held on a world now lost to history. This gathering brought together representatives from every major dynasty, a rare occurrence given the rivalries and animosities that often divided the Necron elite. It was here that Zarek delivered his decree, presenting it not merely as a choice, but as an inevitability. His words carried the weight of logic and necessity, appealing to the pragmatism that lay at the heart of Necron leadership. The Silent King's address emphasized the long-term survival of their race. He spoke of the inevitability of time, the flaws of their enemies, and the enduring power of Necron technology. He framed the Great Sleep not as a retreat, but as a strategy to ensure the preservation and eventual resurgence of their civilization. The act of entering stasis, he argued, was not an end, but a means to secure the ultimate victory. Despite Zarek's authority and eloquence, the decree faced resistance. Several dynasties outright refused to participate, choosing instead to remain active in defiance of the Silent King's vision. These dissenters viewed the Great Sleep as a betrayal of the Necrons' legacy, a cowardly abandonment of their rightful dominion. Some of these factions would go on to be annihilated by the rising powers of the galaxy, while others would endure in isolation, their stubbornness ironically proving their undoing. The implementation of the decree required extraordinary coordination. Once the dynasties had agreed, or been coerced into compliance, a sequence of final preparations began. Cryptex were tasked with activating the stasis systems on countless tomb worlds, while overlords oversaw the orderly withdrawal of their forces. Defensive protocols were enacted to protect the sleeping Necrons from external threats, with vast arrays of automated defenses deployed to guard their crypts. The Silent King himself oversaw these efforts, ensuring that no detail was overlooked. The final moments before the Great Sleep were marked by a sense of solemnity and foreboding. On each tomb world, the Necron legions gathered in formation, their lifeless eyes reflecting the eerie glow of their stasis crypts. The process of entering stasis was methodical, with each Necron warrior taking their place within the crypt's chambers. Overlords and pharaons, who had once commanded armies and ruled entire sectors, joined their subordinates in this long slumber, their power now entrusted to the machines that would sustain them. The Silent King's departure marked the climax of this event. As the last of the Necron dynasties sealed their crypts, Zarek stepped away from his role as their ruler. In a final act of leadership, he removed himself from the equation, exiling himself into the void. This self-imposed exile was a calculated move, meant to prevent the emergence of centralized authority that could destabilize the fragile balance among the dynasties during their dormancy. Zarek's departure was a moment of profound significance, symbolizing both the end of an era and the hope of a future resurgence. As the crypt sealed and the Necrons entered their long sleep, the galaxy itself seemed to exhale. The once dominant Necron Empire vanished almost overnight, leaving behind only remnants of its vast infrastructure and the echoes of its former glory. For the other species of the galaxy, the disappearance of the Necrons was a mystery, their tomb worlds buried beneath layers of myth and obscurity. Few could have guessed that these ancient lords of the stars were not gone, but merely waiting, their slumber a calculated pause in their relentless march toward supremacy. This moment, the initiation of the Great Sleep, would come to define the Necrons' legacy. It was a decision that preserved their race against the ravages of time and the chaos of a galaxy in flux. It was also a moment fraught with uncertainty, as no one, not even the Silent King, could predict what the galaxy would look like when the Necrons finally reawakened. Yet, for all its risks and sacrifices, the Great Sleep was a testament to the Necrons' unyielding determination to endure, adapt, and ultimately reclaim their place among the stars. The Great Sleep of the Necrons reshaped the galaxy in ways both profound and subtle. Their decision to retreat into dormancy left a void in the cosmic hierarchy, allowing younger species to rise and claim dominion over territories once held under the iron grip of the Necron dynasties. Yet, the full impact of their slumber stretched beyond mere territorial shifts, influencing the balance of power, the development of civilizations, and even the perception of history across the galaxy. The most immediate consequence of the Great Sleep was the sudden disappearance of the Necron star empire. For countless millennia, the Necrons had dominated the stars, their fleets patrolling the void, and their influence shaping the fates of entire worlds. Their withdrawal created a power vacuum, destabilizing regions where their presence had once imposed order. This vacuum was quickly filled by other species, most notably the Eldar, whose rapid rise to prominence was facilitated in part by the absence of their ancient rivals. The Eldar, gifted with psychic abilities and a boundless capacity for creativity, expanded across the galaxy, claiming many of the worlds that had been vacated by the Necrons. Their empire flourished, reaching heights of cultural and technological sophistication that rivaled even the Necrons' achievements. Yet this expansion came with a price. The Eldar's unchecked dominance and hubris would eventually sow the seeds of their downfall, leading to the catastrophic birth of Slaanesh. In this sense, the Great Sleep indirectly influenced the creation of the Warp's most hedonistic chaos god, as it left the Eldar without a major rival to temper their excesses. For humanity, the absence of the Necrons allowed for the slow and steady rise of their own civilizations. Although humanity's early expansion into the stars occurred long after the Necrons had entered their slumber, the lack of a dominant galactic force enabled humanity to develop largely unopposed. Ancient Necron ruins and dormant tomb worlds were occasionally encountered by human explorers, but their purpose and origin were often misunderstood, relegated to myths and legends. This ignorance shielded humanity from the Necrons' true nature, even as it left them vulnerable to their eventual awakening. The galaxy itself underwent significant changes during the Necrons' dormancy. Without the stabilizing presence of their technological infrastructure, many regions descended into chaos. Tomb worlds, while largely dormant, were not immune to the passage of time. Some became corrupted by the energies of the warp, their crypts twisted and their systems malfunctioning. Others were invaded or repurposed by younger species, their technological secrets lost or exploited by those who stumbled upon them. These interactions often led to unintended consequences, as the relics of Necron technology were poorly understood and highly volatile. On a broader scale, the Necrons' absence contributed to the diversification of galactic life. With one of the galaxy's most dominant powers removed from the equation, smaller species and civilizations were given the opportunity to grow and thrive. Worlds that might have been harvested or obliterated by the Necrons were instead allowed to flourish, giving rise to a tapestry of life that would define the galaxy for millions of years. This period of relative freedom was critical for the development of the Imperium of Man, the Tau Empire, and countless other factions that would later contend with the Necrons upon their reawakening. The myths and legends surrounding the Necrons also played a significant role in shaping the galaxy's collective memory. For many species, the Necrons became figures of ancient horror, their name whispered in stories of lost civilizations and cursed ruins. Among the Eldar, who retained the most direct knowledge of their ancient foes, the Necrons were seen as a lingering threat, a race of soulless abominations that might one day rise again. For humanity and other younger species, the Necrons were little more than shadows of the past, their true nature obscured by time. However, the galaxy's ignorance of the Necrons' continued existence was a double-edged sword. While it allowed other species to develop without fear of their ancient overlords, it also left them unprepared for the Necrons' eventual return. When the first tomb worlds began to stir, the galaxy was caught off guard, its inhabitants ill-equipped to deal with the resurgence of such a technologically advanced and implacable foe. The awakening of the Necrons reignited conflicts that had been dormant for millions of years, reshaping the balance of power and introducing a new era of uncertainty and warfare. The Great Sleep also left an indelible mark on the Necrons themselves. While the galaxy evolved and changed, the Necrons remained locked in their crypts, their perceptions of time distorted by stasis. For many, the experience of dormancy was one of isolation and detachment, further eroding their sense of identity and purpose. When they finally awoke, they found themselves in a galaxy that was unrecognizable, filled with strange species and unfamiliar powers. This disorientation fueled a sense of existential dread among some Necron leaders, who struggled to reconcile their past glories with their present realities. Despite these challenges, the Great Sleep preserved the Necrons' potential for resurgence. While many tomb worlds were lost or damaged, the majority remained intact, their inhabitants ready to reclaim the stars. The Necrons' ability to endure the passage of time was a testament to their technological mastery and strategic foresight. Their reawakening, though gradual and fragmented, demonstrated the enduring strength of their civilization and its capacity to adapt to a changed galaxy. The Great Sleep of the Necrons was a transformative event, not only for the Necrons themselves, but for the galaxy as a whole. It reshaped the balance of power, allowed new civilizations to rise, and left a legacy of mystery and fear that would resonate through the ages. Yet, the true impact of the Great Sleep could only be understood in hindsight, as the Necrons' reawakening brought their ancient ambitions back into focus, threatening to undo the progress of those who had thrived in their absence. The galaxy, forever changed by their slumber, stood on the precipice of a new era, one in which the Necrons sought to reclaim the destiny they had once forsaken. The Great Sleep of the Necrons stands as one of the most unique phenomena in galactic history, unparalleled in its scale, precision, and implications. It was a monumental undertaking that showcased the Necrons' unparalleled mastery of technology and their cold, unyielding logic. Unlike typical forms of retreat or hibernation, the Great Sleep was a carefully orchestrated event rooted in advanced science, long-term strategic foresight, and an unflinching acceptance of the reality of their circumstances. At the heart of the Great Sleep was the Necrons' mastery of stasis technology, a marvel that far exceeded the capabilities of any other known species. Necron stasis crypts were not mere chambers of preservation. They were intricate systems capable of suspending time itself. These crypts created pockets of temporal stasis, where the flow of time effectively stopped, allowing the Necrons to remain in perfect condition for millions of years. Unlike organic species, which might decay or suffer the effects of long-term cryogenic storage, the Necrons' mechanical bodies and advanced stasis fields ensured complete preservation, without even the faintest hint of degradation. The crypts themselves were masterpieces of Necron engineering, combining utility with unparalleled durability. Built deep within the crusts of selected tomb worlds, these subterranean complexes were fortified against every conceivable threat. Layers of neutronium-reinforced walls and energy fields protected the crypts from cosmic phenomena such as asteroid impacts and tectonic shifts. The crypts were also equipped with redundant systems to ensure their operation across unimaginable timescales. Even if primary power sources failed, backup systems, including geothermal energy and self-repairing mechanisms, would activate to maintain stasis indefinitely. One of the most distinctive aspects of the Great Sleep was the decentralized nature of the Necron dynasty's retreat. Each dynasty maintained its own tomb worlds, with the Silent King deliberately avoiding centralized control to reduce the risk of internal conflict during their slumber. This autonomy was both a strength and a weakness. While it allowed individual dynasties to safeguard their own crypts without interference, it also led to a fragmented reawakening, with some tomb worlds reactivating in isolation and others succumbing to disaster. The process of preparing for the Great Sleep also revealed the meticulous planning that defined the Necron approach. Before retreating into stasis, the Necrons deployed vast arrays of canoptek constructs to oversee and maintain their crypts. These autonomous machines, ranging from tiny scarabs to towering spiders, were tasked with ensuring the crypt's functionality over eons. The canoptek constructs were programmed with advanced repair algorithms, capable of diagnosing and addressing issues as they arose. They also served as the crypt's first line of defense, responding to any intrusions with lethal efficiency. The defenses of the tomb worlds were another unique aspect of the Great Sleep. Each world was transformed into a fortress, with multiple layers of protection designed to deter invaders. Beyond the physical barriers and automated defenses, many tomb worlds were shrouded in secrecy, hidden beneath layers of rock, sand, or even entire oceans. Advanced cloaking technologies rendered these worlds invisible to most forms of detection, ensuring that only the most determined or unfortunate explorers would stumble upon them. Perhaps the most extraordinary feature of the Great Sleep was the programming of awakening protocols within the crypts. These protocols were designed to trigger the reactivation of a tomb world under specific conditions, such as the depletion of its power reserves, the presence of significant external threats, or the passage of a predetermined amount of time. This ensured that the Necrons could adapt to changes in the galaxy even during their dormancy. The awakening protocols also allowed for a staggered reawakening, with some tomb worlds activating earlier than others to serve as reconnaissance forces or to address localized threats. The psychological and existential implications of the Great Sleep were also unique to the Necrons. Unlike organic species, which might experience hibernation as a form of prolonged unconsciousness, the Necrons' machine bodies allowed for a level of awareness even during stasis. While their consciousnesses were not active in the traditional sense, many Necron leaders reported a sense of timelessness upon reawakening, as though no time had passed at all. This experience further distanced them from their once mortal origins, reinforcing their cold, detached view of the universe. The scale of the Great Sleep was another unmatched aspect of this event. It was not the hibernation of a single civilization, but the coordinated dormancy of an entire race spread across countless worlds. The sheer logistical complexity of initiating and maintaining this state was staggering, reflecting the Necrons' unparalleled organizational capabilities. No other species in the galaxy, even at the height of their power, could have undertaken such an ambitious and far-reaching endeavor. The Great Sleep also left an indelible mark on the galaxy's perception of the Necrons. To most other species, the Necrons became a mystery, a shadowy legend whispered in tales of ancient horrors. The crypts themselves, when discovered, often inspired fear and awe, their alien architecture and lethal defenses standing as a testament to the Necrons' enduring legacy. For the galaxy's inhabitants, the Great Sleep was a source of dread, a reminder that the Necrons could reawaken at any moment, their return heralding chaos and destruction. Ultimately, the Great Sleep was a testament to the Necrons' resilience and their willingness to embrace extraordinary measures to ensure their survival. It was an act of defiance against the inevitability of entropy and the passage of time, a bold strategy that allowed them to endure when so many others had fallen. The uniqueness of the Great Sleep lay not only in its scale and execution, but also in its profound implications for the Necrons and the galaxy they sought to reclaim. It was a moment of unparalleled ingenuity, a pause in their endless pursuit of dominion, and a chilling reminder of their determination to rise again. The Great Sleep of the Necrons was shaped by a cast of powerful and enigmatic figures whose decisions, ambitions, and actions defined this pivotal chapter in their history. These individuals were more than mere participants. They were architects, visionaries, and, in some cases, reluctant witnesses to the events that would reshape the fate of their species and the galaxy itself. From leaders burdened by impossible choices to technomancers ensuring the process's success, the roles of these key figures were as monumental as the Great Sleep itself. At the heart of the decision to initiate the Great Sleep stood Zarek, the Silent King. As the supreme ruler of the Necrons, his authority was unmatched, and his vision for the survival of his people shaped every step of the Great Sleep. Zarek was not merely a monarch, but a strategist of unparalleled foresight, one who recognized the limits of his empire's power and the necessity of retreat. His decision to exile himself after issuing the decree for the Great Sleep symbolized both his selflessness and his burden. Zarek understood that his continued presence might foster division among the dynasties, so he chose to bear the weight of exile, wandering the void while his people slept. His departure left a void in leadership, yet it was a calculated act to preserve the fragile balance of Necron society. Among those tasked with executing the Silent King's vision were the Cryptex, the master technologists and scientists of the Necrons. These individuals played a vital role in the preparation and maintenance of the stasis crypts. Chief among them was Orican the Diviner, a cryptech renowned for his ability to predict the future through complex calculations and the manipulation of temporal energies. Orican's insights into the galaxy's shifting tides proved invaluable in selecting tomb worlds and designing the stasis systems that would preserve the Necrons for eons. Though his methods often strayed into arcane territory, his contributions were pivotal in ensuring the success of the Great Sleep. Another significant figure was Nemesor Zandrek, a Necron overlord known for his tactical brilliance and unshakable loyalty to his dynasty. Zandrek's role in organizing his forces for the transition into stasis reflected his meticulous approach to warfare and governance. However, his unwavering adherence to honor and tradition sometimes placed him at odds with the Silent King's pragmatic decisions. Zandrek viewed the Great Sleep as a necessary but regrettable act, one that forced his dynasty to relinquish its rightful place in the galaxy. Despite his reservations, he carried out his duties with unwavering precision, ensuring his dynasty's survival through the long dormancy. A darker presence during the Great Sleep was Illuminor Ceres, a cryptech driven by an insatiable thirst for knowledge and power. Ceres saw the Great Sleep as an opportunity to experiment and refine the Necrons' technological capabilities. His fascination with biotransference, the process that had transformed the Necrontyr into Necrons, led him to conduct unsanctioned experiments even as his peers focused on stasis preparations. Ceres viewed the galaxy's changing state during the Necrons' slumber as an opportunity for further advancements, believing that their eventual reawakening would allow him to test his theories on the newly risen species. The Necron overlords, leaders of their respective dynasties, also played critical roles in the Great Sleep. These figures, each commanding vast legions and resources, were responsible for implementing the Silent King's decree on their respective tomb worlds. Overlord Imhotep, the Stormlord, renowned for his tactical acumen and relentless pursuit of order, ensured his dynasty's crypts were fortified beyond standard protocols. Imhotep's meticulous planning and rigorous enforcement of discipline reflected his belief that the Necrons would one day reclaim their dominance, and he prepared his forces for that eventuality with unyielding determination. Beyond the Necron leadership, the Canoptek constructs also deserve recognition for their roles in the Great Sleep. While not individuals in the traditional sense, these autonomous machines were indispensable to the stasis process. Overseen by cryptechs like Anrakir the Traveler, who remained semi-active during the Great Sleep to monitor the galaxy, these constructs maintained the crypts, defended the tomb worlds, and ensured that awakening protocols would function as intended. Their loyalty to their programming and their ability to adapt to unforeseen circumstances made them crucial to the success of the Great Sleep. Among the dynasties, not all leaders embraced the Great Sleep with equal zeal. Some overlords, such as those of the Thocht and Mefrit dynasties, approached the retreat with reluctance and skepticism. They questioned the Silent King's decision, fearing that dormancy would leave them vulnerable to the whims of time and chance. These dissenters often sought to preserve fragments of their fleets and forces outside the stasis crypts, hoping to maintain some presence in the galaxy. While their efforts were often met with failure or obscurity, their resistance to the Great Sleep highlighted the diversity of thought within the Necron hierarchy. Even within the slumber itself, personalities played a role in shaping the Necrons' eventual reawakening. Some overlords awoke ahead of schedule due to faulty systems or premature activation protocols, while others, such as Anrakir, took it upon themselves to roam the galaxy during their people's dormancy. Anrakir's wanderings allowed him to gather intelligence on the galaxy's changing state, ensuring that the Necrons would not awaken entirely blind to the new order of the stars. His actions, though solitary, had lasting implications for the Necrons' resurgence. Ultimately, the Great Sleep was as much a story of individuals as it was of a collective effort. The leaders, scientists, and warriors who shaped this event were united by their desire to preserve the Necron race, yet their motivations, methods, and visions for the future often diverged. These figures embodied the complexity and contradictions of the Necrons themselves, soulless yet driven, fractured yet unified by a shared destiny. Their roles in the Great Sleep ensured that the Necrons would endure, ready to awaken and reclaim their place among the stars. The Great Sleep of the Necrons is steeped in secrecy, with layers of mystery that even the Necron dynasties themselves cannot fully unravel. These enigmas surround the origins, execution, and consequences of this monumental event, creating a shroud of uncertainty that continues to baffle scholars and strategists across the galaxy. The cryptic nature of the Great Sleep is a reflection of the Necrons' obsession with control, precision, and hidden knowledge, as well as the immense passage of time that has obscured many of its finer details. One of the most profound mysteries lies in the exact mechanisms of the stasis crypts themselves. While the technology behind them is undoubtedly Necron in origin, the methods used to suspend time and maintain operational stability for millions of years remain beyond the comprehension of other races. Even among the Necrons, few truly understand the full intricacies of these systems. The cryptechs who designed them worked in near isolation, sharing only fragments of their knowledge to ensure the security of their creations. This compartmentalization means that the secrets of stasis crypts are effectively lost, even to the dynasties that rely on them. Another enduring mystery is the role of the C'tan shards in the Great Sleep. The Necrons shattered their former masters into fragments long before their retreat into dormancy, yet many tomb worlds are rumored to house dormant shards of these godlike beings. The decision to imprison the C'tan within their crypts may have been a calculated move to harness their power, or simply a means of containing a threat too dangerous to leave unchecked. Regardless of the intent, the presence of these shards adds an element of unpredictability to the awakening process. Some shards may aid their Necron jailers in exchange for limited freedom, while others could escape and wreak havoc, turning tomb worlds into battlefields upon reactivation. The awakening protocols themselves are another source of intrigue. While these protocols were designed to reactivate Necron dynasties under specific conditions, the exact triggers remain a closely guarded secret. For some tomb worlds, reactivation appears to be tied to external threats or environmental changes, while others awaken seemingly at random. The disparity in awakening patterns suggests that the protocols may include layers of logic and foresight that even the Necrons do not fully comprehend. It is possible that some protocols were altered or corrupted over time, leading to unexpected awakenings and incomplete resurgences. The enigmatic exile of the Silent King is one of the most debated aspects of the Great Sleep. Zarek's departure was framed as a means of preserving balance among the dynasties, yet the true nature of his self-imposed exile remains unclear. Some speculate that he left behind hidden instructions, stored within cryptic data caches or encoded into the awakening protocols themselves to guide his people upon their reawakening. Others believe that Zarek sought out answers to questions even he could not resolve, such as the long-term effects of the biotransference process or the true nature of the galaxy's evolution during their dormancy. His return in the modern era, with knowledge gleaned from his time in the Void, only deepens the mystery of his absence. The fate of lost tomb worlds is another unanswered question. While many Necron dynasties successfully entered stasis, countless others were lost to time, war, or disaster. Some tomb worlds were destroyed outright by cosmic events, such as supernovae or tectonic shifts. Others were discovered and plundered by younger species, their secrets exposed to those who lacked the wisdom to understand them. Still, there are rumors of tomb worlds that remain hidden, their crypts perfectly preserved, but their awakening protocols malfunctioning or deliberately suppressed. These dormant worlds may one day re-emerge, bringing with them forgotten technologies and dynasties long thought extinct. Even the psychological impact of the Great Sleep on the Necrons themselves is not fully understood. The transition into stasis was not without cost. Many Necron leaders experienced a profound sense of detachment and existential unease upon reawakening. This disorientation is particularly evident in overlords who retain fragments of their individuality as they grapple with the loss of their organic past and the alien landscape of the modern galaxy. The process of biotransference, combined with millions of years in stasis, may have introduced subtle flaws or changes to their programming, leaving even the most powerful Necron minds vulnerable to instability. The Canoptech constructs, while instrumental in maintaining the crypts, also harbor their own secrets. These autonomous machines were designed to function without direct oversight, yet their programming is believed to include hidden subroutines that activate under specific conditions. Some scholars speculate that these subroutines are tied to ancient directives issued by the Silent King or other high-ranking cryptics, ensuring that the constructs can adapt to unforeseen challenges. However, this autonomy comes with risks, as some constructs have been known to act unpredictably, attacking Necron forces or misinterpreting their directives in ways that suggest deeper, unknown programming layers. The relationship between the Necrons and the Warp during their dormancy is another subject of speculation. While the Necrons lack the psychic connection to the Warp that characterizes many other species, their retreat into stasis coincided with a period of increased Warp instability. Some theories propose that the Great Sleep was partially motivated by the Necrons' desire to avoid the growing influence of the Immaterium, shielding themselves from its unpredictable dangers. Others suggest that their stasis crypts may have been designed to create a barrier against Warp intrusion, preventing the corruption or manipulation of their dormant forces. Lastly, the implications of the Necrons' slumber for the galaxy's balance of power remain a topic of endless debate. By removing themselves from the galactic stage, the Necrons allowed other species to rise and reshape the cosmos. Yet, their reawakening poses the question of whether this withdrawal was truly strategic or if it inadvertently sowed the seeds of their current challenges. The Necrons' fractured state upon reactivation, combined with the entrenched powers of the modern era, suggests that the Great Sleep may have had unintended consequences, leaving them at a disadvantage in a galaxy they once dominated. The Great Sleep, with its layers of secrets and unanswered questions, is as much a mystery as it is a historical event. For the Necrons, these enigmas represent both a source of strength and a lingering vulnerability. For the galaxy at large, The mysteries of the Great Sleep serve as a chilling reminder of the Necrons' unmatched mastery of technology and their enduring capacity for calculated, inscrutable action. As the galaxy's wars rage on, the echoes of the Great Sleep reverberate across the stars. The Necrons, now stirring from their eons-long slumber, find themselves awakening into a universe that has evolved far beyond their once unchallenged dominion. The long passage of time has transformed both their enemies and themselves, creating a new chapter in the endless saga of survival, conquest, and reclamation. Yet, the legacy of the Great Sleep lingers, shaping the Necrons' place in this reconfigured cosmos. For the Necrons, the Great Sleep was both a preservation and a gamble. It shielded their dynasties from the ravages of time, allowing much of their population and technology to endure when so many others had perished. Yet, it also fractured their unity, leaving them to awaken in isolation, often unaware of one another's fates. This disconnection has transformed the Necron dynasties into a disparate force, with some pursuing alliances, others reigniting ancient rivalries, and a few seeking total galactic domination. The Silent King's return has become a pivotal element of their reawakening. Zarek, having wandered the void during the long dormancy, has re-emerged with a vision of unifying his fractured race. He sees the Great Sleep not merely as a necessary pause, but as the prelude to the Necrons' ultimate resurgence. His attempts to consolidate power and lead the dynasties against the rising powers of the galaxy underscore the enduring ambition of his people, even as they face new challenges in an unfamiliar universe. Yet the galaxy has not remained stagnant. The younger species, humanity, the Eldar, the Tyranids, the Orcs, and others, have filled the void left by the Necrons' absence, establishing empires, forging alliances, and waging wars. For these species, the Necrons' reawakening is a jarring reminder of the galaxy's ancient horrors. Tomb worlds, once thought to be lifeless relics, now erupt with activity as Necron legions march once more, their purpose as relentless as it was in the age of the Old Ones. The consequences of the Great Sleep extend beyond the battlefield. The Necrons' re-emergence has reignited the search for their technology, with rival factions scavenging their ruins in hopes of unlocking their secrets. The Imperium of Man views them with a mixture of dread and fascination, their machine bodies and incomprehensible weaponry representing both a threat and a potential source of forbidden knowledge. Meanwhile, the Eldar remain haunted by their ancient foes, whose resurgence threatens the fragile balance of their dwindling existence. The galaxy itself bears the scars of the Necrons' dormancy and reawakening. Tomb worlds, dormant for millions of years, have become battlefields, their activation unleashing torrents of destruction upon neighboring systems. The Necrons' awakening is often accompanied by environmental devastation, as their crypts tear through planetary crusts and their armies sterilize entire ecosystems to secure their territory. These actions, though calculated and precise, serve as grim reminders of the Necrons' ruthless approach to reclaiming the galaxy. For the Necrons, the Great Sleep also carries a personal cost. While their stasis preserved their bodies, it could not halt the erosion of their individuality. Many Necron overlords and warriors awaken to find themselves further removed from the memories of their mortal past, their identities fading into the collective will of their dynasties. This loss of self weighs heavily on those who retain fragments of their former lives, adding an element of existential despair to their already grim existence. Despite these challenges, the Necrons remain resolute in their pursuit of their ancient purpose. They see the galaxy not as it is, but as it should be, a domain where their order, logic, and mastery reign supreme. For them, the Great Sleep was not an end, but a beginning, a calculated pause in their timeless march toward reclamation. As they awaken, dynasty by dynasty, the galaxy must confront the resurgence of a power as old as time itself, a race that has endured the unimaginable and emerged with an unbroken will to conquer. In the end, the Great Sleep is more than a historical event. It is a testament to the Necrons' resilience, ambition, and foresight. It reflects their unyielding belief in their superiority and their determination to reclaim what was once theirs. As their legions rise from their crypts and their war machines stir to life, the galaxy must contend with an ancient foe that has waited millennia to exact its will. The Necrons are awake, and the stars will once again tremble beneath their cold, unrelenting gaze. The Great Sleep may have ended, but its legacy has only just begun.